All right. Desktop.
We are live to YouTube, Twitch.
Hello, YouTube, Twitch,
Periscope, and Facebook.
And Facebook.
Five minutes.
I'm working the chat server updates data right now. I just got the files. So I am sending those to the server and attempting to run them now. There's some work that needs to occur, and there's some training that needs to happen as well, so this may not happen for this show. Extract the chat server, yay. Extract the updates, yay.
I think what happened was Kennedy wanting to demonstrate to the Soviets that we were the biggest, baddest kids on the block. That our technology will kick your technology's ass anytime.
And it worked, and it was glorious. But it wasn't sustainable because it was a crisis project.
If it was actually about exploration and about the scientific frontier being pushed outward, if it were actually about that, maybe we would have had a scientist on the first mission to the moon. But no, there was no scientist on Apollo 11, nor on Apollo 12, or Apollo 13, or Apollo 14, or Apollo 15, or Apollo 16. The first scientist was on Apollo 17, and Apollo 17 was the last mission to the moon.
There was not a statement made that we're going to go to the moon and establish a human community. We're not going to go to, the moon and then on to Mars. We're not going to go do this and then that. It was simply, we're going to put a human being on the moon. And we achieved it.
In 1957, Sputnik was launched. And if you ask me what drove the creation of NASA, it was the launching of Sputnik. The public often thinks of Sputnik as, oh, it's just an innocent little satellite that went beep. Let's part the curtains, and you find out this was the shell of an intercontinental ballistic missile that had been hollowed out and a radio transmitter put in the head. That's what was flying over our heads in America on October 4th, 1957. Spooked us to no end. No one said, oh, the frontier of exploration is breached. No, it was the Soviet Union has the new high ground. They are our sworn enemy. We can't look bad in front of them. We've got to do it too. We need an agency to take care of this. A year later, NASA was founded.
All right. Colton, if you're watching, that chat server does not seem to be running on this system.
Theoretically, 2 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, looks like this won't launch.
And
I posted a link to this on your YouTube video on the Facebook page.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, we're too close to show. We're going to skip the chat, move to the existing system. Dada, we'll skip the online stuff. We'll skip the templates. I'll just do it old school. Where's Carrie Ann? You ready? We're 2 minutes out.
Cool, I gotta go. Yeah. Yay.
Also, hello, Internet.
Hello, Internet.
Dang. Rah.
This new planet is so nice.
It is, right? What are we calling the new planet?
What do we call the last planet?
Let
Planet
me
X.
look at.
Oh, this one's not going to be Planet
We
X,
could call
that's
it
ridiculous.
2017
Yeah, that would be an appropriate name.
P2017 or P/2017.
What's the P for?
Planet.
Planet.
Oh.
Seriously?
2017 T1, representing tomorrow, the first planet of tomorrow.
Should it be T2
in
then?
2017?
Yeah, it should
Oh,
be
22.
T2, right?
T2.
Oh yes, T2. I'm sorry, my bad. Yes,
All right,
T2.
hang on. So
like
let's
you don't even know what you're
let me write
talking
this.
about.
Let me write this in the
Jared,
notes.
Neil deGrasse Tyson disapproves of your planet name
Yeah, look at that
selection.
face.
Okay, well,
Seriously.
Neil's an astrophysicist, so he can stay in his lane.
Wow.
Whoa! Whoa!
Fighting words over here.
Okay.
All right, hang on. Let me add that to the notes.
We're supposed to be on. You are holding up the show right now.
I know, but we're gonna do this anyhow. Give me a second. What is it? P 2017.
T dash
P slash
slash
2017 T2.
T2. P slash 2017.
Actually, I can look it up real quick and try to figure out.
No.
Yeah.
And After Dark.
Yeah, we'll do that in After Dark.
Sure.
We'll call it tentatively called P slash 2017 T2. Okay, let's go ahead and start the show.
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
Hey, are we recording?
I was just about to ask that. Look at him. He's walking in so... Rolling!
Alrighty. Take two, everybody.
Let's try this again.
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
No, this one's stupid too because I started in a bad state.
Hold.
Ah,
We gotta wait for your automation to settle down.
it should have already settled in that amount of
Yeah,
time.
but it had it. I stopped it with key
yep.
on.
No air conditioning in this room. Slash.
Yeah, it's a little warm in
Yeah, I can't. Okay, I've been trying to get a reasonable temperature. I can get frigid or hot. Which would you prefer?
frigid.
All right, frigid it is.
The two skinny ones have got extra jackets.
There you go. Frigid mode enabled. You ready? Let's try to do this for real this time, kids.
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
Welcome to Orbit 10, episode 21. I am Carrie Ann. With me is Mike and Jared. I have a Dutta. I have a Ben. I have a Paul. I have a whole bunch of things going on. I know, per usual. So, before we get started, I want to make sure we give a huge shout out, not per usual, to our Escape Velocity patrons. These are the people who have contributed $10 or more for this particular episode, or for this particular segment, this particular episode. Wow, I am just out of practice, apparently. In any case, these people, of course, have given us a huge amount of support, and I want to make sure that we thank them properly. So there you go. If you would also like to contribute to the show, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. Woo! Okay. I'm excited. I'm really excited. So I'm just saying a lot of things. We, of course, have to start off with a bunch of launches because we had a bunch of launches since the last episode, which is so awesome to say. So, Mike, start us off. What have we got on tap? What was the first launch we missed since last week?
So yeah, just going in order. First off, we have a Falcon 9 launch, which actually happened on last Saturday, but after our show took place. So let's check out the footage from that.
4, 3, 2, 1. Falcon 9 is clear to Falcon.
So as I said, this was on Saturday, June 3rd at 21:07 Coordinated Universal Time, launching from Cape Canaveral, Florida. Now, this mission was carrying the Dragon spacecraft headed for the International Space Station, and this particular Dragon has flown once before on the CRS-4 mission. This particular mission was for CRS-11, and this time it carried about 2,708 kilograms of cargo, or about 5,970 pounds, which included supplies, equipment, and experiments for the International Space Station. Now, the first stage was successfully able to land back at Landing Zone 1 at Cape Canaveral, and is the 5th to do so out of the 11 successful landings that SpaceX has had, and the 16 tries overall that they've tried to land these boosters. So this is just another incredible feat, and the footage is getting better and better. I mean, I was so excited to see this last time, and this might be the new normal to see footage like this coming from SpaceX's launches. So.
Nice.
Holy cow, yeah, and just another one of those successful landings. Even though this is the 11th one that we've seen now successful, it still gets me excited every single time. Now, after a 2-day flight, the Dragon capsule did rendezvous with the International Space Station and was captured by the Canadian robotic arm and berthed to the station on Monday, June 5th. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about some of those experiments that the Dragon capsule carried on board. And there were some interesting things that the Cygnus capsule also did, getting that out of the way for the Dragon capsule to be berthed successfully to the space station. So congratulations to SpaceX for this successful mission for CRS-11, and it's really cool to see the Dragon capsule flying again, having a reused Dragon capsule be sent to the space station. So 2 out of 3 major pieces for this launch were reusable, so that's pretty cool.
And it's really cool. I love how you can tell it's clearly getting into the summertime in Florida because of all those bugs. Like, DGAF, like, huge rocket coming down. Bugs are like, cool. They head right for the camera, which I always think is hilarious. So there's a lot of really great screenshots of, like, gigantic bug-looking things.
Yeah, sorry, wasps.
Right?
Although also not sorry because they're wasps.
Yeah,
So.
there's that. But it is a sanctuary, so we have to recommend that. Okay, and what else do we have? There was a Proton return to flight. So tell me more about that. What was going on there?
Well, before we actually get to the Proton return to flight, before that flight, India actually conducted their maiden orbital flight of their GSLV Mark III rocket. And that was on Monday, the same day that Dragon berthed to the International Space Station. The Proton flight was just on Thursday. So first let's check out the footage of this GSLV flight. Oh,
4,
I'm excited for it.
3, 2, 1, 0, +1, +2,
S200 ignited,
+3,
vehicle liftoff.
+4, +5, +6, +7, +8, +9, +10 seconds.
Just heard the announcement.
5 seconds.
So this launch, as I said, happened on Monday, June 5th at 11:58 Coordinated Universal Time from the Satish Dhawan Space Center on Sriharikota Island in western India. Now, the core stage and the solid rocket boosters have flown once before on their 2014 suborbital test flight that had a dummy upper stage. And this flight had an operational cryogenic upper stage and even a payload, even though it was the maiden flight of this rocket. The payload was the GSAT-19 satellite, which is going to support television broadcasts, data networks, and other broadband services over India. But I'm really excited for this because this particular rocket is in the same class as the Atlas V, not quite as much as the Falcon 9, but it's still the heaviest rocket that India has to date and is going to definitely enable more business from them. So I was really excited to see this launch, and I'm definitely happy for India, and congratulations to everyone who made this particular flight successful. So.
Yeah, and particularly
cool.
for a maiden flight, the camera work on that was actually really decent, so that was kind of cool to see.
Yeah, and it seems like the footage from India is getting better and better. And footage like this, even though it's a little bit grainier than what we might be used to now of seeing payload deployments, is something that we hadn't seen up until recently from Indian launches. So it's really cool to see better and better quality.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, sorry.
Now let's talk about Proton.
I got so excited. I'm so sorry. I don't even know how I did that. All right, so yes, we're talking about Proton. So lay it on me. What's going on there?
Yeah, this was the first flight of a Proton in over a year. So let's check out the footage from that. And it's a little bit interesting. This footage was from International Launch Services, the commercial arm, and it might look a little familiar.
Okay.
And we have ignition. We have positive thrust and liftoff of the ILS Proton launch vehicle with the EchoStar 21 satellite on board. About 10 seconds after liftoff.
So yeah, noticing the bar there, this launch occurred on Thursday, June 8th at 3:45 Coordinated Universal Time from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Now, the Proton had been grounded due to quality control issues with the third stage of the rocket, and quite a few engines, over 100 engines, had been replaced in the Proton fleet. But this launch was successfully able to occur, and the Breeze M upper stage successfully delivered the EchoStar 21 communications satellite into geosynchronous transfer orbit about 9 hours after launch. And I really appreciate, even though it's just a launch animation, the much higher quality of launch animation that they have for this than I'm used to, at least for Proton launches and launches coming out of Russia. But in any case, the EchoStar 21 satellite is going to help expand the mobile voice and data relay communications network over the European Union and some of the neighboring countries. I'm sure that includes Russia. So congratulations, not only to all the Khrunichev engineers who were able to make sure that this rocket performed as it was supposed to, but also to ILS for managing this launch. And I'm happy to see the Proton get back into action. And hopefully, along with the other problems they've had with some of the Soyuz rockets, they'll be able to continue their flights and get back to normal operations. So, yeah, good job, Russia, for this successful flight.
Yeah, totally. I love the animations of the fire is like all purple and blue and really cool looking.
It's so pretty.
It is a lot like our studio. What? Oh, sorry. Okay, so awesome. Love launches.
Yeah, that's it we had for launches.
Whew, good. So, Mr. Jared.
Yes.
There's, of course, a ton of more stuff coming out of Cassini.
Yes.
So, lay it on me.
Okay, so Cassini's, in those orbits where it's going between the interior of Saturn's rings and the atmosphere of Saturn itself, what we call the grand finale orbits. And on May 30th, it actually took an orbital path that took it the closest it will get to the innermost rings of Saturn, called the D ring, and just barely grazing that. And Saturn isn't the only planet with a ring around it. Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune have rings around them, but Saturn's rings are by far the most complex ring system in our solar system. They're also the easiest to see from Earth because they are primarily composed of water ice, unlike Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune, where their rings are mostly dust. Now, this pass was so close to the interior of the D-ring that they actually pointed Cassini so that it would travel with its high-gain antenna forward. Now, this was sort of as a precaution, just in case any potential particles may run into Cassini while it's zipping through there at an incredible speed. So that way it hits the high-gain antenna instead of the vehicle or any of the instruments themselves. Now, the imagery that's coming back from this is absurd that we're seeing, like some of the amazing photos coming back from it with the detail that we get out of the rings here. Same thing with the data from the other instruments that are on board. They're going to help us probe the origins of Saturn's just incredible ring system, and also looking at that ring system, the complexity of it, and figuring out maybe the origins of the ring system. Now, there are 3 more orbits close to the interior of the D-ring that are planned from now to mid-July, but this was by far the closest. So it was literally just a couple hundred kilometers off of the edge of the D-ring. So super, super close. And of course, Cassini is going to end its mission on September 15th, 2017. It's going to plunge into Saturn's atmosphere, completing a nearly 20-year mission with 13 of those years spent at Saturn. And then just look at this image right here. This is just
That's unreal.
Incredible detail coming from these super close ring grazing orbits. So, man, that is some good imagery. So it's going to keep people at JPL very busy for a very long time.
Totally. So. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's beautiful. It's we've got a couple of people in our live audience today, and everyone's kind of like, oh. Yeah, Rebel Ace Friesland in our Twitch channel says 80s picture tuning in. Yeah, that kind of like all of those lines, stripy kind of things.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Looks like an album cover for a Joy Division
Yeah, a little bit, right?
thing or something like that. Yeah.
That's funny.
Just the tracking on those cameras.
Yes.
Yes.
What's wrong with my VCR?
Okay. That's awesome. I love all this stuff coming out of Cassinius. It's really, really fascinating. So, Mike, we have some new astronauts. And
We do.
there's 12 of them. So
There's 12 of them.
I know that this means you're not going to talk for the next half hour.
No. I'll go through and introduce them very quickly and tell you guys a little bit about them. And there was a really cool press conference that NASA put on to introduce them and get some opinions from each of them and stuff like that. And Mike Pence was there, Ted Cruz was there. But I just wanted to clip just a quick little snippet so that you guys could see who they are and a little bit about them to see why they're qualified as astronauts. So as you said, there's 12 of them out of engineers, scientists, and pilots. So let's go ahead and run through it. First, we have Kayla Barron, 29, lieutenant in the U.S. Navy. She served as a submarine warfare officer and has a systems engineering and a nuclear engineering degree. Zena Cardman, 29, whose degrees have focused on microorganisms and subsurface environments. She also has field experience in Antarctica. And then Raja Chari, who's 39, a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Air Force, is a test pilot in the F-35 program. And he also has a master's in aeronautics and astronautics. And then Matthew Dominic, 35, is a lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy, serving as a department head for a strike fighter squadron. And then we have Bob Hines, 42, who is a research pilot and a test pilot for the U.S. Air Force Reserves, and NASA. And then we have Warren or Woody Hoberg, 31, who's an assistant professor of aeronautics and astronautics at MIT. Then we have Dr. Johnny Kim, who's 33, a lieutenant in the U.S. Navy, who's a Navy SEAL and currently a resident physician at Massachusetts General Hospital. Then we have Rob Coolin, 33. He leads a launch chief engineering group for SpaceX in Hawthorne, California. That's really cool. And then we have Jasmine Mogbelli, 33, who is a major in the U.S. Marine Corps. So not only is she a test pilot, but she's also a quality assurance and avionics officer for the Marine Operational Test and Evaluation Squadron. Then we have Laurel O'Hara, who's 34, and a research engineer who has previously been involved in the Flight Opportunities Program, NASA Goddard, and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Then we have Dr. Frank Rubio, who's 41, a major in the U.S. Army, and a surgeon for the 3rd Battalion of the Army's 10th Special Forces Group. And finally, we have Jessica Watkins, who's 29, and a geologist who has previously worked on the Mars Science Laboratory rover, or the Curiosity rover. And those are the 12 new astronauts who make up the astronaut class of 2017.
Whew. Woo! I thought you were getting a little behind there for a second, and I was like, oh, no, talk faster. That was really good, though. I was really impressed. That's super awesome. I had to say that it's nice to see not just more than one woman, just kind of in general, but then also like a wide age range, right?
Yeah.
I think our youngest is, 29?
Yes.
And our oldest is 42. And, and like you said, like a whole different kinds of backgrounds, which is really nice and very interesting. I also like that some people it's like the classic, like, oh, Navy test pilot and a test pilot person and a, strike fighter squadron and, those sorts of things. But then you also get, which is also very classic, the geologist kind of thing going on. Yeah, Jared's very excited.
Being a geologist, I'm happy to see that. So.
And for you,
I was really impressed with the very first one too, Kaylee Barron. She was one of the first female officers who served in an officer role on submarines. So that was really cool that she's kind of already a little bit a part of history, and that, in my mind, that gives her a lot of qualifications to like serve at the International Space Station and long durations in small spaces. So
yeah,
it's cool.
Very, very cool. That's really exciting. A lot of great faces to keep an eye on. So I'm sure they all have Twitter accounts. Go find them. I'm sure these people have names.
That's what we just ran through. Come on, guys.
Sorry.
Anyway, speaking of stars that actually have names.
Yes. Good segue. Stars with names and names with stars.
Star names,
Yes,
name stars.
that's what I said.
We're gonna do this. All right, so I'm sure a lot of us know about the most mysterious star in the Milky Way, Tabby's star, also known as KIC 8462852, which, as you can see in this picture, it wasn't actually very hard to find it. Turns out there's markers orbiting near it out in space. So. Just kidding. Just kidding. But it's in the center there with those little hash marks right there. Now, it's considered the most mysterious star in the Milky Way because using Kepler, or data from the Kepler Space Telescope, we saw that it was dimming very rapidly and large percentages of its light was dimming as well. So, all kinds of explanations have been made as to why it's dimming. Swarms of comets, interstellar dust clouds, giant planets with rings, alien megastructures. No, it isn't. But none of these have really held up to these models. So Tabitha Boyajian, an astronomer at Louisiana State University who discovered this weird light curve back in 2015, actually did a Kickstarter to fund telescope time to provide more observation of her star.
That's awesome.
So looking back on the past data, it seemed that there was like this 750-day pattern where there would be a dip in the amount of light coming from it, and that would mean that in late spring, early summer 2017 of this year should be the next. Well, on May 19th, 2017, the light curve from Tabby's star indicated that it was dipping again, and one of the funnest things that happened with it was that scientists immediately jumped on Twitter and began to try to coordinate observations that way. So this is Jason Wright, who's an astronomer, and he was the first one to say that, hey, the light curves are showing it's dipping, and everybody sort of jumped on it and immediately started coordinating in real time via both Twitter and Reddit. Now, more data is needed to confirm that it actually is a 750-day pattern because 2 to 3 does not make a pattern in science. You got to have more. But they are beginning to narrow the possibilities that maybe it might be a large planet with a very big ring system, but also with these Trojan asteroids around it as well. So basically, Trojan asteroids are asteroids that are sitting at a gravitational balance point between the planet and the star that it's orbiting around. Just like in our solar system, Jupiter has Trojan asteroids, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune have Trojan asteroids. I think the Earth even has one Trojan asteroid that we know of. If I remember correctly, I'm probably wrong, but we'll see about that.
The internet will correct us.
Someone will correct me if I'm incorrect, or someone will correct me if I'm correct.
This is true.
As well. So they're going to be getting more data from it, keeping those observations going on, but we got the biggest telescopes in the world, like the twin Keck telescopes in Hawaii and the Subaru telescope, looking at it and taking spectra to see if we can actually analyze the composition of whatever is dimming the light. So stay tuned, because the most mysterious star in the Milky Way
Still mysterious?
Still mysterious. Not as mysterious as it once was, but they are working on figuring out, and they're not necessarily very close, but we're on the road to figuring out what exactly is causing it to dim. So,
all right.
Very cool stuff.
You used a term I'm not very familiar with. You said taking spectra.
Spectra, yeah. So what you can do, you can actually look at the light that comes from something, and you break up that light into that Roy-G-Biv pattern that we all know, the rainbow through the prism. And you can look at these black lines in there called absorption spectra. And those black lines are where specific elements absorb specific wavelengths of light.
Okay.
So like if you find hydrogen, you'll find a lot of absorption spectra, those black lines, in the red areas of light. So they'll look at those little black lines, and from that they'll be able to figure out precisely what something is made out of.
Nice.
So, which is very cool.
Based on the color of light that it emits.
Exactly.
Nice. So it's a lot like, are you seeing what I'm seeing?
Exactly.
Cool.
Yes. So put on your glasses, get ready.
Nice.
So.
Thank you. I feel like I learned something, and I always like that. Okay, Mike. Going back to Dragon and Cygnus and all of the fun intertwinings there.
Yeah.
Tell me more. Tell me more about science.
So yeah, let's just go ahead and roll this video that has the unberthing and a little bit more on the science that has been going on lately in or around the space station. So first off, Cygnus had to undock to make room for the Dragon capsule. This is the SS John Glenn, or OA-7, and they withdrew on a couple of days before June 5th, just the day before, actually, on June 4th, after 43 days at the space station. And once again, the Cygnus spacecraft is going to be acting as a free-flying science platform, as well as deploying 4 more of their new Lemur 2 CubeSats before it re-enters the atmosphere, currently scheduled for tomorrow, June 11th. Now, they're going to be doing another one of the Sapphire experiments, which will be intentionally igniting multiple materials on fire in a controlled condition to see how they burn in microgravity. And after they've conducted those tests, which should be going on actually right about now, then they'll be doing the final burn to re-enter the atmosphere. But meanwhile, SpaceX, after they berth the space station, they're going to be delivering some hardware, including the NICER experiment, which stands for the Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer. This is something I'm sure Jared is going to be very interested in once it's operational. It's going to be using X-ray telescopes to study neutron stars to help us get even more information about them, and maybe even some of that might help us to figure out the mystery of the Tabby star as well. But another really cool experiment that they'll be doing is called the Rollout Solar Array, or ROSA. And with this, it's a really interesting concept to not only minimize the weight and the mass of different solar panels, it would be able to roll out and retract back in this different configuration. And they have a smaller one that they're flying up to the space station, and it's just going to test to see if it'll work, if it will be able to expand, and if it will be able to retract without using any motors, by the way, and check its resistance to the vibrations and make sure that it actually can generate electricity. And if it's efficient, then they'll be able to make a lot of changes with this. And by the way, this one is constructed by a company called Deployable Space Systems, and hopefully that'll work out. Other than that, they are sending up 40 live mice to the space station, 20 of which are going to be returning to Earth when the Dragon capsule departs in about a month. And aside from that, they also sent up thousands of eggs for fruit flies, which are going to be hatching at the space station, and they're going to send those back to study their heartbeats in a cardiovascular study to see what kind of effects they developed being hatched in microgravity. So that's really interesting, but the interesting part of it for me is that when those mice and those fruit flies return on the Dragon capsule, that'll be one of the another one of the first times that Dragon will be returning live animals on their Dragon capsule, and I feel like that somehow relates to their Crew Dragon and has to help with those milestones somehow. So that's really interesting. But yeah, that's all the news that I wanted to talk about at the space station.
Is that like we gave the antidepressants to the mice and they were fine, so now we're doing human testing? Is that like the equation you're making there? Like, I don't know, the mice lived, I'm sure it's all right.
You know, if you can return these mice alive, then that lends confidence towards that. Hopefully, you'll be able to return humans alive too. Hopefully. I mean, it's just mice, but still, it's a step.
Yes. You know what? I'm sure Lisa will have all kinds of things to say about that. I'm just going to let her go ahead and take that one and comment away on that one.
Well, good luck, Moustronauts.
But yes, of course, we want the Moustronauts to come back alive, of course, because, you know.
Well, we've sent up lots of mice before, but most of them, unfortunately, are euthanized. Yeah. And this is kind of one of the first examples where they're going to try to be returned alive. And they have returned mice alive before on the space shuttle, but, you know, this is proving it on a new vehicle, so
right. No, understood.
That's why I thought it was important.
That's kind of funny. It makes me laugh. So, Jared,
let's see. Do we have time for more?
Yeah, this one because
I'll go quick on this one.
Yeah,
it's a very quick one.
This is cool. This is big.
It's super confusing.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, like how do we find new stuff?
Because there's lots of new stuff out there still to find.
Killing me. All right.
So,
what new stuff did we find?
New stuff and things. We found 2 new moons around Jupiter. Woo-hoo! So they are named S2016J1 and S2017J1, and they are unbelievably tiny. They are maybe several kilometers in size. They're also orbiting retrograde to Jupiter, which is the opposite direction that Jupiter spins, which means that they're probably captured bodies. So basically like an asteroid or a comet that got too close, and Jupiter's gravity grabbed it, and now it's in orbit.
Let go.
So S2016J1 orbits 20 million kilometers away from Jupiter, and 2017 J1 orbits about 23.5 million kilometers from Jupiter. So they're very, very far away. Now, this brings the total number of moons around Jupiter to 69. So there you go. Jupiter has got the most moons in the solar system at 69. So there you go.
Go Jupiter.
Very cool.
And they had to use really big telescopes to find them, but they did. So,
Yeah.
So
All
very
right.
good stuff.
One day you're going to explain to me how we keep finding new stuff.
Because there's just lots of stuff.
I
There's
don't.
lots of stuff out
There's just
there.
lots of stuff out there. It's really big. You gotta look for it as best as you can.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All right. So now we're going to take a break. And when we come back, Ben is going to have a really good interview with Paul Hittelbrand for Fight from Space. And I know that the show is called Tomorrow, but I promise, this has everything to do with yesterday and tomorrow. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. Filled with awesome expectation, this girl's a fascination. Nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking, she's fire walking. When it's hard, she keeps on moving, her heat keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking, she's fire walking to be free.
And welcome back to Tomorrow. We're in front of our new planet. This is, P/2017 T2. So we've finally made it. I think we're validating with the computers. That's where we actually ended up. Now, before we get into our interview, I did want to give a huge shout out to all of the patrons of Tomorrow who've helped to make this specific segment of this episode happen. These are people who've contributed $10 or more to this specific episode. We also have our Orbital patrons. These are people who've contributed $5 or more to this episode. To find out how you can help crowdfund the shows of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. All right, now, before we get into Paul's interview, I did want to show you a trailer for Fight for Space, and I think you guys are going to really love this, and I think it's really going to set up this interview quite well. So here's a trailer.
When did we last leave low Earth orbit to go somewhere interesting with humans? When did we last do it? 1972, Apollo 17. It's been more than 4 decades.
Well, when I look at the present direction of our space program, I feel kind of disappointed.
I believe our nation has lost its direction in space.
They did what they were asked to do. They put their lives on the line. They went out and they did something incredible.
American citizens were walking around, jumping around on the moon, and you stopped? Why did you stop? Are you people nuts?
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. We doubled the number of science graduates in this country during Apollo at every level, high school, college, PhD.
What force was operating to make everyone want to become scientists? We were going to the moon.
NASA's seen better days. The budgets were bigger, the goals were higher. Everyone looked like Ed Harris.
American children unfortunately scored near dead last among the developed nations in terms of math and scientific literacy.
Using the Crew Exploration Vehicle, we will undertake extended human missions to the moon as early as 2015.
Constellation was not, in fact, going to get us back to the moon because we didn't have the money for it. And because of that, they canceled it.
Apollo worked because John F. Kennedy said in 1961, we are going to be on the moon by the end of the decade.
Can NASA mount a project? Can they do a project anymore?
It is not to boldly go where no one has gone before. It's to timidly go where 600 people have already been.
We're shortchanging our space program.
By the mid-2030s, I believe we can send humans to orbit Mars and return them safely to Earth.
Orion is not a deep space vehicle. You cannot go to Mars and it can.
We had the Saturn V. It worked.
Based on NASA's current behavior, we're not going to be on Mars by 2030 or 3030.
No frontier has ever been opened based on the development and operation of a single giant government vehicle.
So unless the taxpayers and the voters want a big change in the space program, I don't think it's going to happen.
Come on, let's go.
We don't go into space and we don't find some other way to boost our economy. Kiss it all goodbye.
Director of Fight for Space, Paul Hildebrandt. Welcome to Tomorrow. Thank you for taking time out of your Saturday to join us today.
Thanks for having me here, Ben.
All right, so I absolutely love and adore this this film. It's considered a documentary. It's kind of a documentary style. It was a Kickstarter campaign, and for those who pledged at a certain level, they've already got access to the download. I've watched it. It's absolutely incredible. Wanted to start off with why you think space exploration is important, or why build a film around space exploration.
The biggest reason I think space exploration is important is that it inspires the next generation of young people to want to do something exciting and do something great. I think there are other reasons that are equally important, including that we need to be a multiplanetary species, because we need, it'd be good to have a backup. And I think that it's just part of our nature to explore, to want to see what's out there, and to journey beyond the horizon as our ancestors did.
So with that, why make Fight for Space? What was the driving force behind creating the movie?
Originally, when the Constellation program was canceled in 2010, I think, I got just kind of personally disappointed because I had always wanted to see my generation go back to the moon, or, we've been seeing movies and stuff, since the 90s and 80s, we're going to go back to the moon, or we're going to go to Mars, and it never happened, and it continued to never happen, and NASA said they were going to do all these things, and they never did what they said they were going to do. So I wanted to make a movie to advocate for space exploration and to find out, why and how all of this kept happening.
In the creation process, did your views of where we're at now versus how we got here, did they change at all? Like, did you make some assumptions that you kind of changed those assumptions during this movie making process, or was it kind of laid out you knew where this was going to go in advance?
It was definitely an exploration for me and a learning process. In 2012, when I started making the movie, I thought that it was a simple solution, that NASA needed more money, and if we gave them more money, they would go and do all these great things. And I no longer believe that is the case. I think NASA could probably use some more money, but that is not the singular solution to the problem. It's much more complex, and it stems from the space community itself being a very combative community and not agreeing on a whole lot. And it stems from how NASA is run by the government, and lots of other things that are shown in the film. But it changed a lot. I changed a lot from my original thinking, yes.
I think a good chunk of the space community, you hit on an interesting point, which is the space community does have different views and opinions on where we think we should go, right? Even within just this small group of Tomorrow, we've got a chunk of people who think we should go to Mars next, a bunch of people who think we should go to the moon next, and we fight amongst each other in a playful way about what we should do correctly. If we all as a space community came together and said, you know what, yeah, I maybe think we should go to the moon next, but I'll rally behind going to Mars because we need to do something. Would that help? Or is it just there's so much politics behind all of this that even if everyone that was a space fanatic got behind it, it doesn't matter because of politics?
I think it would help if everybody could agree on a singular goal. Just within the core, the exploration budget part of NASA, which is, what are building Orion and SLS, and the people that support that in the community, There are those that believe that we have to go to the moon first, and we have to do it like we did during the Apollo program, and that's the only way you can do it. There are those that believe we should skip the moon. We've already been there. We should go to Mars. And I say either one of those would be great, because either one of them is something. You know, America has not launched a person into space since what, 2010 or 2011 was when the shuttle last flew?
If I remember right, it's 2011 for 135. I'm sure the chat room will correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah.
So it's been a while, and you know there was a lull after Apollo, and there's been a lull now, but it's not looking good. And I just came from the International Space Development Conference, and they had a bunch of stuff there the NSS put on, and it's still not looking good. The people that are actually working, the people that are in the politics and in NASA, the way that things are being run now is it's not looking very sustainable.
You know, you hit on a couple of interesting points in the documentary, talking about, you know, how, you know, I think it was Rick Tumlinson who mentioned how the government has never actually opened frontiers through one big vehicle, but you do have like private industry that can help to open new frontiers with the assistance of government. Are we starting to maybe, you're not wrong in that it doesn't look super hopeful, but are we maybe starting to see private and public work together with like SpaceX and NASA, Blue Origin, United Launch Alliance and NASA and all those? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel here with all of this stuff that's happening in new space?
I think so, and that was the major turning point in when I was making the film. Is originally I thought that it was going to be all NASA, and when I went to New Space and I talked to Rick and Jim and Jeff Grayson and a bunch of other people who didn't make it into the movie, yes, I do think there is a promising future if Congress and the government and the rest of the community can get behind this cooperation. There has to be a collaboration and a cooperation between NASA and private industry. So if Congress and NASA can support SpaceX and Blue Origin and Bigelow and all these other companies that are doing really great innovative stuff, like building inflatable space habitats, bringing rockets back and landing them vertically, you know, stuff that most people never thought of. Most people in the general public never thought they would see something like that. That's science fiction. You know, that is paving the way for a sustainable future, that we can send rockets affordably to the space station, to the moon, and then hopefully to Mars.
Do you think you'll see that in your lifetime? Do you think you'll see humans step foot on Mars in your lifetime?
I hope so.
You know, the documentary kind of feels like it's both inspiring and almost a call to action, right? You're showing, you know, Apollo was great and Shuttle was an engineering marvel that was awful. I mean, you didn't say that, but that's, in my own words, kind of what it was. And then we've got Space Launch System, which is like the worst of both combined. It feels like there's a call to action at the end. What is that call? What can normal people, normal space geeks do to help turn this ship in a direction that will get us to Mars in our lifetime?
It's hard. I mean, I struggled to find a solution. I thought that I would go interview these people and I would find this cut solution that, okay, this is what you need to go do, and this is how we're going to get back into space. And it's really difficult. And you know, in talking, I interviewed, and they didn't make it into the movie, but I interviewed probably a dozen congressmen and senators from all the key space districts, you know, Texas, Maryland, Florida, Southern California, and you know, these guys represent those their constituents, and they believe that space is important. What they believe is that space is important in a different way than everybody else. So the guys in Pasadena believe different things than the guys from Texas, and similarly the people from Alabama or from Maryland. They all think NASA is great. They all think space is great, but they don't agree. Again, so space community doesn't agree. Congress doesn't agree. So I think we need to present a unified message that says, you know, at least in the terms of human space exploration, we need to collaborate with private industry to get some of that government funding to launch rockets and people into space, back to the moon and onto Mars, and do it more affordably than building these gigantic government rockets that we throw away 90% of, like they're building with the Space Launch System. So I'm kind of diverging from your question here, I apologize. But it's important for everybody to shed the bias that they may have. So, if you're from Texas and you believe that, we have to build the Space Launch System, I urge you to think differently. Or if you're from Alabama and you're working on that particular program, I understand there are people's jobs at risk. This is very important to everybody. And that was a big discussion at ISDC, was jobs. What are we going to do with all these jobs if we stop building this? And I think there's lots of opportunities in private industry with places like SpaceX and Blue Origin for that kind of work for these very talented people. But again, present a unified vision and advocate for space exploration to your congressmen, to your senators. Stay informed, and don't be so set on like one thing. This is all, we're just going to do this one thing. We're going to go to the moon, and that's all we're going to do, and everything else is pointless. I don't think that's the good way to do it.
No, I think
Again, it's really hard.
Yeah, no, and I think a lot of space geeks kind of, I think, you've got the moon first and Mars first, and, maybe asteroid return mission. But I think everyone generally thinks do them all, right? It's not moon or Mars. It's moon and Mars. It's just where do you go first? And hopefully, that's a good spirit to debate. But you're right. There should be some alignment there. And going back to some of your points, having that one-liner, JFK basically said, look, we're putting a human on the moon. We're doing it in a decade, and we're going to return him safely. One sentence, easy to consume. It was, here's what we're going to do. It's a very hard task, but we're up to it, and we're going to do it in this amount of time. And it feels like we don't have that same call to action right now. We don't have hey, we're going to go to Mars, and we're going to do it affordably, and we're going to set up a colony there, and we're going to do it in a decade. And I just don't know what it will take to get us there, right? Because that needs to have some political will behind it. Sure, a private company can work towards it, but it's so hard and so expensive that at first, to open these frontiers, we need the assistance of government. I mean, getting on my soapbox for a moment. So is there something that the general populace can do to help sway government in that way?
Well, I want to kind of readdress what you just said. When JFK said we were going to go to the moon and we were going to get there by the end of the decade, we were at war, and the movie goes into this in detail. We were at war, and even in my discussions with the Apollo astronauts, a lot of those guys, they believe that the reason why we went to the moon was because we were at war. We got to the moon, we won. There's no reason to go back. It was a purely militaristic goal, whereas the Soviets doing it proactively was a way to stimulate their population as a propaganda tool. So very, very different kind of thinking. I don't know what is going to make the American public want to do this in a big way like we did during Apollo. I mean, there was even some pushback in the 60s from certain congressmen and senators that said, why are we doing this? It's a huge waste of money, it's a moondoggle and all this stuff. And one would not hope that war is not the only reason that we do things. Historically, war has brought massive technological innovations to pretty much every country that has ever engaged in it. But of course, the downsides are obvious. So I would hope that we could find another reason, inspiration, technological advancement, the exploration of the universe should be why we should do this. But it's hard to convince the average Joe, hey, we need to go spend $500 billion to go to Mars, and we all know what the benefits are, but to try to explain it to somebody who just isn't into it is very difficult.
Well, I think in the documentary, Neil deGrasse Tyson mentions, one of the things we can use is war or money. There is money to be made out there. So if we can find a cohesive and simple one-liner, just collectively as a space group, that says, look, here's how going to space makes us money and enhances and enriches your life, I think that will go a long way. But I think, there were the students. Actually, we have a clip. This is a great clip. There were students that you talked to that talked about, like, should we go to space? Should we continue to do this? Would you like to go to Mars? And I thought it was really quite fascinating to hear their responses. So, Dada, if you have that students clip, let's roll that really quick.
My name is Michelle Stellhorn. I am a teacher in the Gifted Education Program of the Rockwood School District. And I teach a unit called Mission to Mars, and we cover the congressional space debate and the importance and future of space exploration.
Do you want to be an astronaut?
No, because I like Earth and I want to stay on it, but I think that space exploration is really cool.
It's too expensive. We have national debt, we have the job deficit.
Do you think that we should be spending more money and effort in space exploration?
Well, I personally think we should, but I think that since there's so many people around the world who are struggling to just put food on the table, I don't see how we can. I mean, we could, but there's so many other problems that are major focuses that the government should be studying, that should be working on.
We need to get our national debt paid off before we can go and play around in space.
If given the opportunity, if somebody said, do you want to go to space, would you go?
Maybe. I think that depends how much they pay me.
Before we go and play around in space, I thought that was a very cute answer, but very telling, right? This is our youth. These are the people who are going to, take the reins in not that much time. And I think that's a very standard way of the mass populace looking at space. And I think that's something that needs to change, and something that I hope your documentary helps to change, is explain what Apollo was, why it was there, why Shuttle was what it was, and how we kind of fell out of love with space in a way. I think between Apollo and Shuttle, a lot of people just, the allure of it all kind of went away, and I think that's represented quite well in the students. Did you see that out in the street? I know you did interviews in the street. We don't have these clips, but you did interviews in the street as well. Did you see that out in the mass populace as well when you're interviewing random people?
The people on the street, nobody really said that they didn't. Well, there was one guy who, but he was a bit strange. But most of the, all but one. I think I did. We must have interviewed, 15 or so people on the street in various parts of the country, from East Coast, West Coast, Midwest. Nobody said that they don't support it. Some of them said maybe there are better things that we could be doing, but nobody said we shouldn't be going to space. What was the biggest point of all the man on the street interviews were nobody knew what was going on. People knew we had a space station, but they had no idea what it does. Some of them didn't even know the space shuttle program had been closed down. They thought we were still flying the space shuttle. And we did these interviews those ones in 2013-14, so it had been a couple years since that. Yeah.
Do you have ideas as to how to fix that problem? How do we make it relatable to them, something that they can understand, something that they can follow even passively and go, oh, hey, yeah, no, I mean, we're working on a lunar colony or Mars colony. How do we make it interesting to the general public?
I think, for me personally, and I don't know about the public, but I think people are jaded with hearing NASA tell them that we're going to do all these great things and they never do it. NASA has been saying we're going to go to Mars since the von Braun era. There's a clip from 1972, right after Apollo 17, where Spiro Agnew, vice president at the time, comes on and says, hey, I think we should go to Mars. you know, and we've been saying we're going to go to Mars since 1972. Bush Sr. said it, and that program never happened. You know, we had Bush Jr. say we're going to go back to the moon, never happened. Obama said we're going to go to Mars, and I think people are just, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, sure, we're going to go to Mars someday. Someday we will go to Mars, but nobody knows when, and nobody's excited about it, because it's like the boy who cried wolf, you know, with NASA. They never deliver anymore.
All right, so a couple final questions. The first is kind of two parts. What was both your most delightful experience building the film, the most amazing thing that just delighted you? And then on the flip side of that coin, what was the most depressing thing that you hit building that film where you're like, oh, I can't believe this is happening?
Let me think about this one for a second. I'm going to start with the most depressing thing because that's easier. It was very difficult to learn just how stuck we are in this system. Going to Washington, D.C. and interviewing a lot of these congressmen and senators who I'd never talked to before. You have to remember, this was my first film. This is my first time really getting out there and addressing a big issue like this. So I thought this is all going to be real simple, and we're going to go out there and we're going to find the solution, and it'll be easy. And it wasn't. It was, all these different viewpoints, and nobody could agree. And then finding out this history, the history of after Apollo, how we just let things die, and how the space program basically became this one giant compromise over and over and over again. And we never did the full all-out program like in Apollo. The most exciting thing, I think, was learning about what private industry is doing now, because you were talking about money. And yes, there is a future in space with money, and that is the frontier mentality, that as our ancestors here in the United States moved west to find greater riches and better places to live, and we built things like the Transcontinental Railroad, we have a harder but equally as lucrative opportunities out in space with asteroid mining, with building a colony on the moon, and creating a civilization there, eventually far, far, far in the future, terraforming Mars, perhaps. I mean, a lot of this is science fiction, but this is all, it's things that we can strive for. So I think if we can continue to push that goal, and again, that's very hard because there's only so much you can do in 4 years of a political term. A lot of this it's going to take a lot longer than 4 years to do something like this. I think Trump came on and said, "Oh, we're going to go. Hopefully by the end of my administration, we'll be on Mars." And there's no way. It's not going to happen. We don't have any of the hardware. We don't have the money. It's great to say that, but we have to do it, and we have to be consistent throughout administrations. We can't have every president every 4 or 8 years saying this is what we're going to do and change everything.
To be fair, though, before they started Apollo, they had nothing. We hadn't put anything into, we had done nothing, and we did it in 9 years. So, yeah, you're right. Maybe not in 8. That's assuming he's reelected. Maybe not in 8. I'm assuming when he made the statement, he was assuming he'd be reelected. But it is, I think if we set these really hard, ambitious goals and we get behind them, we can accomplish them. We just have to make the choice. We have to choose to do it. We have to have the will to do it. That's the only thing that seems to be missing right now, is the will to make it happen. And one other thing I would say is it's only science fiction until it isn't anymore. So I don't think we'll see Mars terraformed in our lifetime, but wouldn't that be cool? That would be really awesome. Maybe we'll see the start of that, though. At a minimum, I like to see humans on Mars in our lifetime, but it would be awesome if we could just see the process start to begin. A few questions from the chat room, and then we'll go over to our general questions. This one's from Neuropilot. He's asking, what are your thoughts that only 2 regular high school teachers have made it to space? Most students can't relate to astronauts that they see on television.
Well, for anybody who knows their space history, NASA, after the Challenger disaster, when Christina McAuliffe was killed, they said, no more regular people going into space. It's just not going to happen. That was shut down after Challenger, and it's a valid point. You guys were talking about the 12 new astronauts that were selected, and they're all kind of the best of scientists and geologists and test pilots and submariners and all this kind of stuff. It's hard to connect with these people. And they're not given the same publicity that like the Mercury 7 were back in the early 60s, when all these guys were on the cover of Time magazine and Life, and they had people following them around all day every day. But I think with what we're doing with SpaceX and private industry, we can reach that goal of sending regular people into space. It doesn't need to be just scientists and test pilots or fighter pilots anymore. We should have that goal of creating, and it's not just a scientific outpost, but creating an extension of civilization out there, so that we can send, people that are going to do mining, and people that they're just going to do work, and eventually they can start families on the moon and on Mars. I don't know the direct answer, I guess. But NASA shut it down, and it just hasn't happened. It hasn't happened since.
Sarge Amazon asks, did you look at what foreign space agencies and startups were doing as a comparison?
We did look at what foreign space agencies and startup companies were doing. I guess they're kind of not so much a startup, not so much anymore, but we did go to X-Core Aerospace out in Mojave, and I would consider that one of the larger space startups. And they're testing rockets, and they're trying to find more affordable ways to build a reusable space plane and build better rockets. There was so much content that we couldn't include it into the film. I mean, maybe if we'd done like a 4-hour series, then we could have explored a lot of that more. But trying to fit everything into 90 minutes, we had to kind of pick and choose.
Have you considered making small, like internet only or like Kickstarter only, little like other snippets of things that hit the cutting room floor?
Yeah. So what I'm planning on doing, we have all this material, we have all these interviews and footage. So I'm probably going to do some sort of, I guess these are popular sort of like web video essays to go more in depth to some of the things that we weren't able to cover in the film, and to use some of those other interviews. And we'll just put those up on YouTube, and hopefully that way people can get more information about all that.
And actually, speaking of, before we get into our general questions, where can people find the film? Where can they go for more information?
You can buy the film or rent the film on pretty much any VOD or online typical distribution service except for Netflix. But you can get it on Amazon, Vimeo, iTunes, Google Play. It's on like the PlayStation Network. It's on your cable on demand. It's everywhere. Fightforspace.com, or just search for it on any of the aforementioned websites.
And you've got a Blu-ray that's either just come out or about to come out as well. Is that correct? Or is that for Kickstarters only?
We're doing a disc distribution for the Kickstarter backers. I just got the DVDs in for them. The Blu-rays are coming in soon. That's a little bit longer process. And then our distribution company, Gravitas, will be doing DVD and Blu-ray sales at some point in the next few months.
Awesome. All right. Let's get into our 5 general questions. These are questions that we ask every single guest. No right or wrong answers. They can be as long or short as you'd like. The first one is Moon or Mars first?
I would say Moon.
Would you go?
Would I go?
Mm-hmm.
Not right now. Maybe in 20 or 30 years.
Waiting for the indoor plumbing to be ready to go. Kind of like show up. Don't have to camp it.
Well, I have responsibilities here on Earth. If I didn't have those connections, then yeah, I would go to the moon.
When do you think humans will first land on Mars?
if we get our stuff together, I think we can meet the 2030 goal. If we don't, I don't know.
So 2030 sounds like it's a long way away, but it's only 13 years.
Right.
When do you think humans will set foot on the moon again?
Again, it depends. There's a clip in the film where a congressman asks a panelist at a hearing, and he says, when do you think we're going to get to Mars? And he says, with the current budget, never. And I think that's the perfect answer to both of those questions. But not necessarily budget, but we need the focus and the budget and the means and the will to do this. And like you said, we did it in 8 years before. We could do it in 8 years now. We just need to do it.
And my last question for you, why space?
Because it's there. The classic response. I don't, for me, I don't need any other reason. Our ancestors were driven to explore the oceans, to see what was out there, to see what was at the other side. The quest for knowledge, what's out there, what's under the lunar surface that could be waiting for us, what's on Mars, are we alone? All the great questions of existence, I think, can be answered by the exploration of space. And we're very confined here on our little blue marble, and we need to go out there and see what's out there.
Paul Hildebrandt, Director of Fight for Space, thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday. I have to say that 90-minute documentary really summed up a lot of what we've been trying to say here on Tomorrow for the last 10 years, but much more succinct and, in 90 minutes instead of 10 years. So it was absolute pleasure to watch. It's very inspiring, very well put together, and I highly recommend every Space Geek go out, and if you didn't already have it from the Kickstarter campaign, go out and watch it. It's just great.
Great. Thank you very much, Ben.
Thank you. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, comments from last week's show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Casper crashed.
Awkward pause. All right. Paul, thank you so much. You're free to hang on the line. Otherwise, you're free to go as well if you don't like the rest of your Saturday back. Thank you very much for taking time out of your Saturday. And it really, truly
Thanks,
is.
man.
It is a great documentary. You did a fantastic job with that.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Dutta, I'll let you. You're obviously going to need to restart Casper to make that go. You're fine. Stay there. Yeah. I'm not making you get up. Yeah. All right. Let's put it in the middle. Jared, move yours to the. There you
go. We've always looked to the stars. They guide us, give us comfort, help us find our way. We see ourselves out there. When we look up, it inspires us. And we long for something we don't yet know. We yearn to go there. So, we venture forth.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. It's one small step for man.
The exploration of space will go ahead, whether we join in it or not.
Many think we stopped exploring. But we know our journey didn't end. We've only just begun.
design is functioning perfectly at this point.
Come with us and explore tomorrow.
And welcome back to Tomorrow. Now, before we get into comments from last week's show, shout out to all the patrons of Tomorrow. These are the Escape Velocity patrons. They've contributed $10 or more to this specific episode. We've also got our Orbital patrons. They've contributed $5 or more to this specific episode, as well as our Suborbital patrons. They've contributed $2.50 or more. On the Suborbital level, they're going to get access to After Dark as soon as it's available on demand, our Hangouts, and a bunch of other really cool things. And to find out how you can help crowdfund the shows of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. We are a crowdfunded show. Every single dollar helps us continue to do this week after week and put our new planet up. I'm really digging on the new planet.
Yeah,
really
I like it.
What do we say it is?
P2017 T2.
Did we confirm that's actually what it is?
Sure.
All right.
Until the AIU gets around to naming it.
Well, yeah. How does that work? What's that process?
It's long and involved, and you can't Google it.
Really?
Yeah.
Naming, typically there are certain categories that are assigned to specific objects for naming.
And then each one it's broken down into a bunch of different things.
So we're going to have to get into whether this is a planet or not debate?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, this is a planet. That's not a question. But it's like, what star is this planet closest to?
What defines a planet?
Oh my God, I'm not doing that.
Can we not? By the way, we've got 8 years to name it, or else any scientist can propose a name.
Really?
So we've got 8 years to do it.
8 years.
So, yeah.
Can any scientist? Does it have to be a scientist, or can anyone propose a name?
Just anyone who would be a member of the International Astronomical Union can propose a name. So.
I need to become a member of the International Astronomical Union.
Yeah.
All right. Capcom, get us started with some comments from this last week's show.
All right, so last week's show, in case you could not remember, it was Michael Mealing of Way Paver Foundation. Not Pay Waiver. Just want to be really clear about that. CEO of Way Paver Foundation. So first comment comes off of YouTube. This comes from True Fire Messiah.
Okay.
That happens sometimes. Those Jupiter images from Juno just makes me glad I live in this time of technological advancement. Go pull out those 25-year-old science books that we all read as school kids and just look at it now. Wow.
They were incredible.
Beautiful.
They were incredible.
Oh, yeah.
And can you believe they didn't even want to have a camera on this mission?
And the camera really is an afterthought. It's a horrible little.
It is. It's like a 1024 by 1024 camera.
But the imagery it's inspiring, and it's really cool.
Yeah. It's good stuff. So keep cameras on spacecraft, please.
.com.
Yes.
Feels like, or that needs to be. Is that the shirt for the show?
Spacecraft 2017. That's campaign 2017. Keep cameras on spacecraft 2017.
I vow.
Aww. That's terrible. All right, so next comment comes off of Patreon from Tom Westcott.
Thank you for being a patron, Tom.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Is that how you pronounce it, Tom?
Tom?
I'm going to go with Tom,
right,
as I always have every time this man has commented.
All right, well then we'll get corrected if we're wrong.
And if Thom would like to correct me, Thom will. How's that?
Or Thom.
Thom? Tome.
Tome.
Thom. It's like it's a soft.
Anyhow.
Saying, for those of you in Tesla Model X's, why isn't ISS already an app in your dash?
Because the browser in the Tesla is awful. Right?
It's real bad.
3G, 2G, what is it?
I mean, it's nice that it's there and all, but like...
So hologram, it is a 4G. You can get 4G elements for your Tesla, but... I know. What is this, like first world 1%er problems? I don't know what's going on here. But the system driving it is so underpowered. The computer and the GPU is so underpowered that
I can't imagine why. It's not like the computer is doing anything else in that car.
But I believe it's actually a separate computer, right? So you go to browse to a website and it is painful.
It's quite painful.
I don't want to say it's unusable, but it's as close to being unusable as you can be without it actually being unusable. I would almost argue it's worthless to have that feature.
It's nearly a flip phone on edge.
It's a 2003 web mobile connection. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't install apps on the Tesla either. So it's not like your phone where you can be like, oh, give me the ISS above app on your car. Although that would be kind of cool for the X, right? Because we were talking about how the X has that windshield that goes up and over, and it could be like, look up now, and you'd be like, okay, and then it's probably bad if you're driving, but.
Thank you, Eeyore, in the chat room.
Says,
it's pronounced Tom.
Okay.
As I have always said.
Yes.
Thanks for screwing with
Well,
me.
Eeyore says, if I recall correctly. So Eeyore could be wrong, too. It could be fell on the...
Yeah, it's not, though.
Sir Gamelot says, but Tesla can play Monty Python sketches, which is true. The Teslas can now, you can request the car to play a Monty Python sketch.
Can I request a car to play other things? Monty Python?
Yeah, apparently you can. Yeah. All right, next.
Sounds like we need to make a Patreon video.
Maybe that'd be fun.
Your request brought to you by Daryl Hall. So next comment comes off of Twitter. Just happened to be the next person, and then Daryl Hall happens to be a.
I love Lamp.
That would be amazing.
Rick, are you just saying things?
No. From Twitter, from Daryl Hall 14 says, "Can I go? I can't. If I can't go, can my mother-in-law go?"
Not today.
Only if either of you have the associated bachelor's, master's, or doctor's degrees, and/or have the right field experience, so to say.
It is
or
sort
a
of like
military
trying
background.
It's sort of like starting to try and travel without the new driver's license or without your passport anymore.
Man, they've got those signs at the airport now where they're like, "Hey, just so you know, if you live in Minnesota, can't be using your driver's license."
Sorry, you need the enhanced driver's license. But I'm not exactly sure what's all going on with that.
3 or 4 states where they're like, "Nope."
Yeah, but Minnesota's one of them, so which always catches my eye because we're
as we
partial.
have Minnesotans in the room, so I picked Minnesota.
I mean, no, they got here. It's fine. It's totally fine.
Next up.
Next comment comes off of YouTube from Orion Scott. Great show, y'all. 2 questions. In Juno's flyby of Jupiter, when it's at its closest point to the atmosphere, is that Juno's shadow you can see in the cloud or just an effect from the stitching? And then number 2, to Space Mike, what does it look like on your end through the hologram? You interact with the crew extremely well. Yes, he does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he does. And I will say that, and I'm pretty sure I brought this up last week, but in case I didn't or I just thought about it really loud in my head, last week when Ben was not here and it was just Jared and Mike and I, Jared and I were refixing the chairs and everything, and I was like, we're just going to flank him. We're just going to flank him. We're not going to move the TV. We're just going to flank him. And did not tell Mike.
Yes.
We had no way to communicate this to Mike
Forgot
until
about
he
that.
saw it in the preview, and then he was like, oh, and you're on either side of me now. This is fantastic. Keep in mind, of course, he is only looking at whatever walls are in his room.
What are you talking about? He's a hologram. He's got a holographic projection of this area, too.
What I actually, and I don't want to know for sure, but what I see in my mind's eye of what poor Mike has to look at is like a bucket with like a mop in it, and he just stares at the end of the handle, and there's no like face or anything.
Googly eyes. Put googly eyes on the handle.
No, but there isn't, because he hasn't had time, and his girlfriend's probably like, I have to use that broom now. It's stupid. And so it just sort of like sits like leaned up against the walls, and
What
he
do
just
you
kind of makes eye
have
contact.
in that room, hologram? Like what? I like how I'm calling him hologram now.
Right.
Do you have like what is
the nature of emergency?
Right?
Yeah. I mean, you're looking left right now to simulate that effect. So what is to your left?
So to my left is, I mean, there really is nothing. There's just points on the wall that I've tried to figure out. Like, okay, if their eye line is about here, then right about at this spot is where I need to look. So like, there's
more like a
literally a
spider
jacket
web.
hanging up right here where there's a button. Kind of in the middle, and that's where Carrie Ann's eye line is. And if Jared ever starts speaking, I look at another button.
Oh my God, that's amazing!
Mostly, like, it gives the perception that I'm looking from Carrie Ann's height to Jared's height.
Okay, screw you, first of all. You're like Carrie Ann's height to Jared's height.
No,
It's
it's
not
literally
really
very
good.
subtle. Like, you guys probably won't even like be able to find it if you look closely at it. It's like literally from here to here. Like, I don't even know if you guys can even
That's
see that
funny.
difference.
No, I have
Carrie
to
Ann could see a difference.
From down here, I can.
Mike, I have to say, your ability, like you're figuring all of this out, adds so much to the show. It's such a little thing. I absolutely love it. I think it's so well done, and you have absolutely mastered that technique. It's incredible.
Thank
It's
you.
absolutely incredible.
If you go back and watch last episode's comment section, I kept going back and forth because Carrie Ann would speak and then Jerry would speak.
He's just like, I do have a
And then
point
Doug
for
would
over
speak,
there.
and I would like lean back like this to
Yes.
be looking at the window where he is.
It was so good.
But the first part of the
So
question,
good.
in Juno's flyby of Jupiter,
please
was
do, please.
that a shadow? I think you're referring to like the big black bars that were at the bottom and top from time to time.
Yeah, no.
That's from the stitching.
Exactly.
Right? They had to stitch a series of images together, and if they didn't have the image for the bottom, they had nothing to stitch there. You
Yeah.
end up with a big blotch of black.
Yeah, maybe if they had like something better than a 2-megapixel camera, you could probably
Hashtag
not say it. So,
all spacecraft cameras.
Hashtag space cameras for spacecraft.
For life. Space cameras for life.
Yes.
Space cameras for life. All right.
Exactly.
Next up, Capcom.
Hashtag something other than Polaroid. Next comment comes off of YouTube from Barry Hayworth. Says, regarding the question of rocket stages as junk in our oceans, did anyone else think of Disney's Little Mermaid? Imagine what Ariel might have done with a bunch of rockets. Never mind wanting to be where the people are. How about going where no people have gone before? That's a fantastic visual.
I wonder, what does that spacesuit look like with the fin on the bottom?
Kind of like what we were imagining with the other spacesuit with no legs. Remember that one? I think it'd be a lot like that.
I'm never going to live that down, am I?
So
God. Oh, God.
Spacesuit with no legs? That's just ridiculous.
Why would you do that? You would die. Everyone's looking at me like you're an idiot. That's not what he means.
We usually do, so.
Well, we got you on that one.
That was good.
Yeah, way to review the comments before the show on that one, Ben.
Yeah.
What?
All right, next up.
Way better that way.
Next up.
Oh, man. Oh, goodness. All right, so last comment comes off of YouTube from Awa Jerome. Love the show I watch every week, but I don't get any episodes on my podcast app anymore. Did you stop posting them there, Ben Credible?
No, we don't allow drones to watch the show.
Wow.
Drones are holograms.
Wow.
They're right out. No drones. No, so here's what happened. We moved to Podbean away from Amazon Web Services. So if you're in iTunes or any service that does the automatic redirects, you should have automatically been redirected to Podbean. All the new episodes are posted on Podbean. If, however, you're not on iTunes or a service that understands the redirects, you may need to resubscribe to the podcast. Go to podbean.com, search for TMRO, it'll pop up. Just subscribe to it there. All the stuff's right over there, and off you go. We did that because our AWS bill was getting ridiculous. It was over $1,000 a month in bandwidth hosting for the downloads on Roku and iTunes and everything else. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I kept looking around and everything else, but because we're a long-form, high-def video show, our file sizes are huge, and everyone was about, when you look at our numbers, everyone came out to like $1,000 a month for hosting. So I was like, ugh, and then I found Podbean, and they're actually very reasonable numbers, like $120. And it's like, yes, we're going to do this. So
Good stuff.
Yeah, that makes me much happier. All right, that is our show. I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching, as well as our ground support patrons who've helped to make this specific segment happen. These are people who've contributed between 1 penny and $2.49. Once again, we are crowdfunding, and at this level, you also get your name in the show. Every single penny helps, although I think right now Patreon doesn't allow a contribution lower than $1. We used to allow 1 penny. That wasn't a change on our side. That was on their side. For more information on how you can help crowdfund the shows of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. That's our show this week. We'll be back next week, same time. But for those of you watching live, stay tuned. After Dark is up next. See you next week. I think I was purposely trying to not sound like that, but it would have been great.
A fitting tribute.
It would have been a tribute. So Carrie Ann saying that, I should have said, stay tuned, same bat time, same bat channel.
Or even just same time, same channel.
Yeah.
Because Adam West.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, we started After Dark on a bummer.
Also, space whales, by the way.
Yes.
Swales. All right, we need to do an open.
Well, because if Ariel is going to go to space, then I was thinking of space whales because of Star Trek.
Ah.
Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Space Mike, what was your favorite story?
I think I'll say New Astronauts. NASA
Nastronauts?
selects New Astronauts.
Nastronauts, all right. Jared?
Keep the Milky Way's weirdest star weird.
All right, I'll say I have an interview with Paul Hildebrandt, director of Fight for Space, and
Keeping the Milky Way weird.
and
It's hilarious.
and you'll take us into the show, right?
Sure.
All right, Space Mike, you're up first, then Jared, then me, then Carrie Ann. All right, here's number one. Number uno. One. Oh, there we go. One.
Coming up, NASA selects New Astronauts. Keep the Milky Way's weirdest star weird.
I've got an interview with Paul Hildebrandt, the director of Fight for Space.
All that and more coming up on this episode of Tomorrow.
One take.
Boom.
Boom! We could have done that live. We could have done that live. We'll do it live.
No, we could have done it live at the end of the show. The beginning of the show was a little rough, and I'm really sorry.
Oh my God, it was rough. Ugh.
I'm really sorry. That was a lot of that was my fault.
Whew.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
right.
We're gonna have it.
The funny thing is that like last week was kind of okay, and we had taken a week off. I think I was more worried about last week, and then this week was just like another Saturday. We had just done a show last week, and it went really well. And then I was like, like I have no idea what happened.
So unfortunately, we're going to have a really short After Dark this week because the fire marshal is coming next week, and we need to not have a woodworking shop in our studio.
An opera house, as it were.
An opera house. Oh, we were going to tell the story of the opera house because we never got to that, correct?
You're welcome.
Right. So, Space Mike thought the opera house in the studio was our bathroom and thought that we were singing Disney songs on the can. Which is hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
Inaccurate.
Which also we do.
Right. Thank
But-
you.
but-
That's why you
Whole
thought that.
new world.
But not the reason for the name.
Right.
Why wouldn't
Yes.
I think that? I mean,
Right.
come on.
Right.
So then the question of why do we call it the Opera House, which I will hand over to Dutta because he is better suited to answer that question.
So when Walt Disney was building Main Street in Disneyland, the first building constructed is what is now Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln inside of what they call the Opera House. But that started off as the wood shop. And the wood shop created all of the buildings, all of the facades, all of the decorations for everything on Main Street, including the, if I'm not mistaken, the Chicken of the Sea pirate ship that was in Fantasyland. So everything at Disneyland started in the wood shop, and they call it the Opera House.
And everything at Tomorrow in this facility started in our Opera House, which is how we got. You guys liking the new planet? I really like this planet.
Yeah, it's a nice.
Want to see a
Looks
magic
great.
trick? Here's a nifty little magic trick.
Can you address something really quickly?
Sure,
I
go
don't
ahead.
know if that person's still in the room, but somebody was asking how we got the music or where we got the music or if it's specific to only us, the After Dark music.
Oh, that was on Audio Jungle is where we got that.
There you go.
I don't know exactly what it's called, but that's where it's from. So the red you see in the planet is actually not in the graphic. It's through the lighting that we're doing. So we can actually possibly.
Can you?
Maybe,
Can you actually?
Can you?
Can you actually do it?
But can you?
You can actually, right? You can see how I can tweak it. and
Yeah.
it's actually kind of cool.
It is actually.
I would do the one above, but that's.
Is it actually kind
You're
of
not
cool?
tall
I
enough?
hate you all.
Okay.
I thought that was neat. I
Are you
thought that
sure
was.
about it?
It's really neat.
How neat
thought
is
that was
that? I
It's-
think it's neat.
I-
I think it's neat. You're cool. You're cool. I think it's interesting. I don't know if it's neat.
It is all right. So it's neat.
It's
It is
actually
neat.
kind of neat.
For the record, it is neat, and we even have the lights like reflecting off the planet into the windows like we think they should, including like the star reflecting in or bouncing in through through there.
The
So
star, you mean the sun?
Yeah. Well, I mean, whatever that.
The
planet-
sun is not a star.
No, can we not? Can we not? It's like the king of the planet.
There you go. It's so much better.
It's my favorite one. Sometimes I get some binoculars and I just look
see
straight
this?
at it.
Oh my God! Yeah, the wasp. That's hilarious.
It's It's a fire planet. It's a fusion planet.
But that's
Come on, guys.
Photoshop, right? They photoshopped that. It
No,
looks like they
my
photoshopped
understanding
that.
is that that's correct. That was a.
I don't know. It looks kind of photoshopped.
I don't know.
All right.
It's funny.
So questions as to who we can get from interviews. Neuropilot, can we get Simone Giertz on the show? She does the crappy robots on the tubes. I don't know how that relates to space. So if someone can close that gap for me, then maybe she might be willing to do it. Also asked if we could get NanoRacks on the show. We've contacted them a couple times now. I don't think I've heard anything back. I'll have to go back to my notes.
We've had them in studio more times than they know, but not in a professional.
Not in a professional way, but we've had them a lot. It's pretty much what he just said. So yeah, I know, right? Somebody says I look like I'm in a car seat. That's because I'm too short to reach the ground, so I have to put my feet on this thing, but it's also sits higher than any of the other chairs, so I didn't want to be like this teeny tiny short thing, so now I'm actually pretty much on level with the two of them if I kind of just, if I bend
I feel
down a
bad
little
because I
bit.
didn't even notice till you brought it up.
Yeah, it's because of the feet.
So the chat room saying Simone has several videos on how she wants to go to space. Neat. If I brought on and interviewed everyone who wants to go to space, that would be a very boring show. Do you want to go to space? Actually, that may not be the answer I'm expecting. Do you want to go to space?
Yeah.
Dada, do you want to go to space?
Well, yeah.
Do you want to go to space? I don't actually know the answer to that.
Do you want to go to space?
I do, but is it...
Mike, you want to go to space? Yeah?
You
Cat?
want space?
Cat? Space? Space cat?
After it's like super safe and they can knock me out for the trip. Yeah,
Cool.
Wait, knock you out for the trip. That
You
kind
wanna-
of defeats the
you wanna-
point.
Like B.A. Baracus.
You want to experience zero gravity, but you don't want to experience the flight to get to zero gravity?
Yes.
Okay, you don't want to perceive you being really high up.
What about a zero-G flight?
I'd love to do a zero-G flight. I'd probably throw
Yeah,
up.
that would be awesome.
But-
And very possible. Though. That could be very possible.
Yeah, I just some ginger cookies or Dramamine maybe.
All right, so I think we've determined that we need to do a live
You're
show.
pregnant.
From
You don't
zero
know
G
what you're
flight.
talking about.
Yeah, that's true. You have no idea what you're talking about.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. It'd be so awesome.
For
I
those
would
wondering,
only want to do a zero-G flight if Tim Bailey can be my... I need to have
steward.
Tim Bailey with me.
Be your steward.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so.
I mean,
There was
I need to...
so Simone. I keep looking over there. Simone,
The one with
because
the red
that's where
light.
my
The
confidence
one-
monitor.
I know, and I keep trying to tell you.
It's like
It's over here.
It's like check it out with Dr. Steve Brill.
Check it out.
Who we got?
The
Get
pla-
all the space in here to get the big planets. To look through the
Mercury, the sun.
You got the world's largest microscope in this big dirty church. What are you doing up on this hill looking at rocks and stuff? Everybody knows it's just a bunch of rocks and gas and things. Gotcha.
Had you seen that before I posted it in the Discord
Oh
channel?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Up at Griffith,
I'm sure,
everybody
sure.
at Griffith is a huge Steve Brill fan, and we always love to bring up the one where he goes to Mount Wilson Observatory here, and he's just like, "Hey, you got a cool jacket. Who gave that to you?" "Oh, it was a gift from a friend." "Hey, cool guy."
Hey.
You have a telescope that like Galileo may have looked through?
No, microscope. He always referred to it as a
big microscope.
Microscope, that's it, yeah. Never a telescope, right? Yeah, microscope.
You were trying to say something?
Yeah, so someone said, so Simone did go on a zero-G flight, and what was hilarious, so I was watching that, and it was Tim Bailey that was the steward, so you actually see him doing his, like, you only see a few frames of him doing his thing with his normal, like, huge Tim Bailey smile of, like, everything is awesome! Oh my god, I just realized he is the Lego movie.
Yes.
Tim Bailey equals Emmett.
Yes.
So anyhow, yeah, that would be fun. I think it would be awesome to have the entire TMRO crew up on a zero-G flight, a parabolic flight.
But I will only go with Tim Bailey.
Rebel Ace Friesland asks, how about having a project manager of a space project from another agency than NASA on? We have actually reached out to ESA and a couple others, and generally we get the, who are you, why should we care? email. And then we have a normal, like, okay, this is who we are, this is how many subscribers we have, this is what our catalog looks like, this is what we do, this is what we're trying to do. And then, like, nothing. And then we'll follow up, and then, like, nothing. So basically, they're like, oh, you're not CNN, you're not MSNBC, you're not a big media outlet, go away. Which is a very telling, like, these agencies are very old school in their way of doing things, which you see both in their rockets and in the agency. So,
Oh, shut up.
So I would love to have ESA or some other agency on. They just need to, reply to our emails. So there you go.
And if JAXA would reply to our emails / send a T-shirt, that would be great.
We
You
did
can only
reach out-
get them at JAXA.
We did reach out to the Canadian. This is horrible. I feel like I almost shouldn't say this. We reached out to the Canadian Space Agency, and they were like, "Why?"
To be fair,
I can't believe
right. I mean, that was how that email kind of went,
yes.
right?
To be fair, the Canadian Space Agency does a decent job of getting their own name out there.
They do.
Like, they have put space things on their money.
But no, they were like, "What do you want to talk about?"
Kind of. Because they
And
do
then-
a
and then I
decent
could-
social media
and then-
job,
but
and
you-
then you couldn't answer the question.
I couldn't because I was like,
I don't know, you got that arm and stuff, right?
right, yeah.
What about like that one guy who does like albums and stuff?
I was
I
looking-
know he's not in space anymore, but he'd be cool. Like, you're right. There's nothing to say.
Right, that was my problem, and I couldn't reply. Because I was like, "Oh God, yeah, no, why?"
Yeah, talk about.
So why do you want us to come on the show? That's a real.
That was on me. That was a little bit on us because they're like, "Okay, well, what do you want to talk about?" And we were like,
I don't know.
You guys made a bit of a Frischman move there with not getting it right at the first time.
Right. So, right.
You blew it.
So,
you blew it.
Right. To be fair, it's not like they were like, why would we want to talk to you? It's just more like, sure, what do you want to chat about? And we didn't have much of an answer for that. Cool space stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Because they did put a robotic arm on.
That's the thing.
On everything. They put robotic arms on everything.
I think
That's
it's their $10.
Yeah, they had an arm on shuttle, and then their follow-up to that is the big one on the International Space Station.
And their money.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they did the Dexter attachment for it that has all the different arms and tools and everything like that.
Yeah, the problem is, it's a show called Space tomorrow.
Is it called Space?
Yeah, let's just be focusing on what they done.
Yep.
Space.
Yep.
Space Bid tomorrow.
I mean, that's the internal production name for it.
Yep.
Tomorrow Space.
Tomorrow Space.
Tomorrow Space.
I mean, I was close. It is a show called Space, I guess.
Coming to you live on April 2nd.
So good.
I'm trying to reach out to. Hopefully, I can try to reach out to some people within ISRO.
That would
might
be
be able
cool.
to get a response from them.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I just need them to respond and actually be. The other hard part is a lot of times.
No. Apparently, you need them to respond and know what you're talking about.
That too. That is on me. Well, because I didn't want to talk about Dexter or the robotic arms because that has been done, and then I was like, well, I don't want to talk about the astronauts that have already been going up there. So I'm like, all right, I did in fact do a little bit more research. I was going to answer the question, and be like, all right, this is what we want to talk about, but then I legitimately couldn't find anything. I'm like, I just don't have anything compelling here. I don't have I didn't see a compelling story.
Right.
So, and I don't want to just do an interview for the sake of doing an interview. That's stupid. I want to have compelling stories. So there you go.
Right. So, there's
I found out something over this past week that made me a little depressed.
Yeah.
So Iran has officially given up on their human spaceflight plans because they've been getting way too much. Iran, yeah. And they've given up on their plans for now because they're getting way too much pressure from the United States because, of course, we think that it's their ICBM program, which they could already do at any time if they wanted to. But, yeah, it's a bit of a bummer. But, yeah, for now, they're just cooling off on all of any sort of orbital space rockets because they are worried about the backlash. So,
Gotcha.
maybe when the United States gets a different president, maybe the story will change. But yeah, it's pretty sad.
I don't know. We seem to rough arm a lot of countries into not having isn't Australia not having a space program kind of our fault too?
That's more Britain's fault, but.
Yeah, let's blame England.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a good week to do that.
I
so.
feel like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's their laws. It's the Commonwealth's laws that banned Australia from doing stuff. So why blame the United States? We had nothing to do with that.
No, I thought we did.
might have given them the idea or pressured England to do that, but
No,
it was England that did that.
I was talking with a miniature Lisa and a.
It's just Lisa.
A quarter Stoge?
Her name is Lisa.
Miniature Lisa.
And she's not a miniature Lisa. She's a full-size Lisa.
Which is still miniature.
No, just because you're gigantic.
I know other Lisas that are bigger than that Lisa.
Wow, that's just insulting.
Actually, I'm not sure that's actually.
I know
even
smaller
true.
Bens than you.
There's.
Wait a second. How's that possible?
Dada's laughing.
Well, then.
To be fair, we had a full-size Lisa in studio, and she was talking about Casina.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Casina.
Casina.
Mm-hmm.
Very well done, Dada.
Casino.
So
casinos.
As far as I understand, now Australia is free to rebuild the Woomera test site and do launches whenever they want.
There was something to do
as far
about.
as I understand, legally.
Yeah, we should bring Lisa on and talk about that because Australia is. Australia is actually a really good place to launch rockets from, just from a technical standpoint.
There's a lot of nothing.
A lot of nothing.
Yeah, a lot of nothing.
Close to the equator.
Close to the equator.
Close to the equator.
You can go east.
Yes.
Yep.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Like,
or is it because you're upside down? Is it west?
That's a really great question. I don't know.
Oh my God, I don't know.
You just kind of fall into space.
That's actually a good point. You just have to let go of the rocket, and it just falls into space.
That's why there's not a lot of good Australian basketball players, because if you jump too hard, you fall right into space.
Yeah, right into space. Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah,
confirmed.
Yeah. This seems like real science.
So yeah,
confirmed. Yep,
it is.
We're sciencing right now.
Yes, we are.
Yep.
So.
Okay. To address the idea that we have spoken to people who are not part of NASA, people rightly point out ULA and Virgin Galactic.
Troy Bruno and George Whitesides.
Yeah, we bring on a lot of these space.
This orbit.
We've also brought on. From Rocket Lab.
Yeah, we've talked to some.
Oh my God! What is his name?
We've talked. Yeah, we've talked to a bunch of different people, and continue to as much as possible.
Oh my gosh! Now I gotta look it up.
I'll know it as soon as I hear it. I was just talking about him the other day. It's
Peter something.
Beck.
Peter Beck.
That's it. Peter Beck. I needed the Peter, and then I got the Beck. Yeah, Peter Beck. So we've had Peter Beck on the show. We've had Zero to Infinity, which is also not an American. The thing is, for everyone who's like, oh, you're too much American-centric, frankly, a good chunk of the space happens here in America. So as soon as really cool stuff happens that's not in America, and they're willing to come on the show, more than happy to bring them on the show. We're not just sitting here trying to focus only on American industry, but most of the new space companies around the world are located right here in America. So I hereby challenge you, go build a new space company, and we'll bring you on the show.
Yeah.
I would love...
Especially if you're in a country other than the United States.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And do it in Australia. It's a perfect place to have a launch site, perfect place to build a space program. Go build a space program in Australia. Bring you on the show. It'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Just like that guy.
I mean, one of our favorite space startups is Copenhagen Suborbitals. They're not in the United States.
Just like that guy from Uliu.
Zero to Infinity.
What?
I said Zero to Infinity. All right. On that note, we do need to end this after dark because we have a bunch of MDF and stuff we got to throw in dumpsters and kind of clean up, and I got to do electrical work and blah 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 blah. So, thank you everyone so much for watching. I actually don't have a guest scheduled for the next 2 weeks. I am desperately trying to get a guest scheduled. Nope. There's no one for the next 2 weeks. I'm trying.
Is this not one of the months where we have a roundtable discussion?
That's next month.
I thought for some reason we did. Oh, okay.
That's because I
Hey, guess what? If we
it.
can't get a guest by next week, you know what we're going to have?
We're going to have a roundtable discussion. We may start having lots of roundtable discussions like in a row because it's weird. I've got like these 2 weeks, then I got a couple, then one. But they're starting to fill in. It's just like getting guests has slightly longer lead time than you'd expect because we kind of have to force them onto Saturdays. And for a lot of people, they're like, ugh. Some people don't care, but a lot of people are, some people, it's 50-50. Yeah. All right. On that, I hit the hologram. On that note, thank you everyone so much for watching, and we will see you next week. Bye. Bye, Mike.